Sai Kumar, I'm basically a mechanical engineer and I come with around 26 years of work experience. And all these 26 years I have been in the field of quality. And my first 10 years I was with a manufacturing firm. And then I was with Indian Statistical Institute for around 3 years. Then I was moved to Patni Computer Systems in Noida. I was with them for around 2 years and moved to Satyam in Bangalore. I was with them for around 3.5 years, and for the past 8 years, I am with QAI. With QAI, I'm in the role of a principal consultant for Six Sigma, and I handle the Six Sigma and Lean assignments for QAI, both consulting as well as training. So I do the training for Six Sigma include yellow belts, green belts, black belt, master black belt, and the consulting assignment is something wherein we are playing the role of a master black belt when we get into an organization. We help them identify the projects, we train them, mentor them, and then formally close the project. So that would be one cycle of implementation during any consulting assignment. So basically this is my role at QAI. Okay. Now for the session, please feel free to ask questions as we go along. You could make note of all your questions. I will give you time in the end, so you could pose all your questions at the end of the session, and you will have the chat window. So you could pose all your questions in the chat window. Okay. We are getting into the session. So the coverage for the session, that is the agenda for the session. So some brief thing. So what business analytics is, why do businesses actually need analytics, how do they use it, then what is the analytics value chain, and then what analytics actually is, what are the different domains in analytics, and then how are each of these domains using analytics for the benefit of the business, what are the tools that are used, what are the techniques that are used, and in case you would want to get started with analytics, then how do you go about, what are the skills required. Okay, so we will start off with the what business analytics actually means. Now, business analytics, it refers to some basically it is about how do you use data or the available data to get insights into the business. Now here you have the business context, you have the data, so that is the analytics part. You have the business context. In the business context you have the data, and accordingly you make use of the tools to make some inferences, right? So it is all about using the data, what we call, and then we are using a science which is related to the data, that is nothing but statistics. So a combination of the business context, studying with data, using the different tools, right? Now here technology is related to the different statistical softwares that are used. So it is that technology, and here what we meant by statistical method is nothing but these are related to the statistical tools that are being used to get insight into the data. Okay. Now my experience, whatever I have seen, we have lot of data that is there. I mean, when we get into organizations for consulting, so we observe that there is a lot of data that is being captured and it is available. But what is that we are doing with the data? How best are we making use that data for the benefit of a business? Now, most of them, they capture the data, but after that, that's it. I mean, they only try to prepare some graphs and charts and then present it, and nothing beyond that. So how best is that this data can be used? Fine. Now, why did it actually come into the business analytics? Why do businesses actually they get into that in what way they can be used. Now, as I said, a lot of data is being captured. Now, earlier the data, yes, it was captured on in manual form, but now as the technology has increased, the rate at which the data is coming also has increased, and the variety of data also has increased. So you have the data coming in all forms, and the rate at which the data is coming also has increased, volume has increased. So there are three V's, that is the volume has increased, the velocity at which, the speed at which it is increasing, and variety. So the different types of or different sources of the data, right? Now, because of this, you have so much of data coming in, then but why are we capturing it and what sense is it making? How can I make use of this? Now, I just took some example of a small, it could be a small coffee day shop or a coffee shop, or even for that matter of fact, let us, you could take the example of analytics in every type of business that you see around. Now, for example, the IPL auctions that happen, how do you think a franchisee is selecting a particular player, pricing it at something? So based on what? What do you think, is the basis of selecting a particular player at a particular price by a particular franchisee? Because they do have this, there is a lot of, every team has an analyst, and this analyst helps them identify who should be the player they should select and on what all basis. Now, there is a lot of analytics that goes into even selecting a player. Not only that, even when the matches are being played, just imagine the amount of stats or data that is being generated, the number of overs that are being bowled, the number of scores that have been, the scores that have been scored by each and every player, by teams, against each and every team at different venues, against different opponents, okay, at different places. Then the number of overs bowled, number of wickets taken, the rate at which they are taking, and in each and every bowler also they are able to come out with stats related to how is he bowling in the first spell, how is he bowling in the second spell, what amount of number of or what percentage of deliveries he has bowled. They are good length, they are bad length, they are open. So they are able to come out with so much data, and using all this data, so it was also a case study around, the one of the IPL franchisee, that is Kolkata Knight Riders. How did they win the championship a couple of years back? So they say that, analytics was one part, wherein the team composition, what should be the team composition so that we would be able to win the championship. So they were able to identify players or who is going to be the best combination by doing all these analytics. Now, this was also there some time back as well, when we were, I would say, I think almost 20 years back, there was a World Cup, in 1996. At that point of time, South Africa was a new team, it was just its second World Cup, and it was participating for the second time. First time they didn't get into the finals, but in the second time when they got, they had come out with a plan, and we were actually very surprised at that point of time, that is 20 years ago, they getting into analyzing the way they came out with their strategy was using something like analytics, which we didn't have any idea about that at that point of time. That is exactly 20 years ago. So they built a strategy in such a manner that, who are the opponents they are going to play, what are the venues they are going to play. And if we are batting first, then what should be the strategy? If they are batting, then what should be the strategy? Then who will bat first? Who will bowl first? Right? And how many overs? What are the strengths of that particular team? If you are playing with this team, then who all should play? What are all our strengths? So this way, they came out with a strategy which actually surprised us. We didn't even know that at that point of time we could make use of all this to plan like this. Right? Now, because of the data volume, now data storage also was very expensive previously, but now it is not. So storage also has the volume, the cost has also, volume has increased, cost has reduced. So now you have more data, so I am making use of that data to make some, in what way I can analyze it and make use of the it for the benefit of my business. Now here I have just taken an example of a coffee shop. Maybe you can imagine it to be a coffee day, wherein there are, assume being they have 1,000 outlets and then 100 transactions per day, then you will straight away get 1 lakh transactions per day. Now these are only 1 lakh transactions per day. Now imagine there are like this, if I do capture the data for 1 year, then how many transactions will I have? What if I have some historical data for the past 2-3 years? Then how much data would I have? So the and also this being captured, maybe you have so many parameters that are being captured for each and every transaction. But how I use this data? So it could also be that you could stratify the data as per maybe the the outlet wise or the store location. Now all this we see this for this weekend, or for that matter of fact even there, whenever there are festivals, there are long weekends, you see all these retail chain outlets, they are giving big discounts. And how do you think they are coming out with all these discount? What is the analytics that goes behind this, offering discounts with such huge margins, right? So they have something like this, that is, they capture all the data and come out with all. Now what are the analytics that they could do? They could go by the location, that is, where is the store location. Are all the locations, are all the stores performing different? Are all the purchases that are done in different stores different? And how is for all these promotions that they give on the weekly basis? So how are they working at different stores? Then what are the purchases that were made? So which product was purchased, and what products did they buy together, and why did they purchase what they have purchased? Quantity, how much was purchased? What is the average purchase for every transaction? Is it the same across all the stores? Then time of the day, maybe day of the week, maybe week of the month when it was bought, and do the sales, do they vary by time? That is, again, vary by time of the day, vary by day of the week, maybe vary by week of the month, and even month of the year. So this one. Then prices, what is the average spend that they would get for each customer, and what is the distribution of spend across all the customers? Then discounted price. Now these days we see a lot of discounts. So what was the total discount for, when you see your bill? I mean, in case I assume you notice that when you go in for all these retail chains, they would, after the bill, there would be also the total discount that has been availed. So you will have the total discount that has been. So what percentage of items were bought on discount? How much was the average discount? So all this you're able to you could see to this extent. That is, all the data that has been captured can be stratified and analyzed in this. Oh, okay, sorry. Now, once they have done the analysis, this is what they found out. I am just taking I just took an example of the coffee shop. So here they found out that I have taken the data for almost 10 months. So that means around. So it is 1 lakh per day, means maybe 30 lakhs per month. So I have taken for 10 months. So somewhere around 30 million transactions. So they have found out that so this was some. These are very just figures for understanding. So 72% had only coffee, 12% had another variant, and 27% had a combination, and 52% had another combination. So this was what after analyzing the data, what they have captured for over 10 months. This was one small observation. Then they further segregated this data into trying to find out where by location of the outlets. Now when they tried to see, there were outlets in the city, there were also outlets on the intercity expressway or the highway. So when they found out the consumption was different, so the outlets, they had more of coffee, and then 12% had this, 27% and 52. Whereas when the outlets were on the expressway, the consumption was a little bit different. So 52% had coffee, and this was the 21% had 45% had coffee with this, and 70% had this. Now, based on this particular analysis, now how do they go about making the, I mean, what are the findings from this? Now, how should the business act, and what are the actions that they are supposed to take based on this particular analysis? So, there could be some insights into this, and they could come out with findings which are like this. That is, city outlets. These are the findings. So, city outlets had more of consumption of iced coffee was consumed more in the afternoon between time. So, what does this mean to the outlet? So, what they should do? They should because the consumption of coffee is more, so they could have more of coffee flavors. And then also the iced coffee could be made available between those timings. On the other hand, if you look at the expressway, so the consumption was more of coffee and cookies. The peak crowd was observed between 10 a.m. to 11:30, and again 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And there were more of business travelers. Now, what does this mean to the outlets? So they should maybe they could add some different types of cookies, have additional products for sale, and maybe because the group was more of business travelers, so they could also have some complimentary Wi-Fi for all of them. Then, because the average time spent also by, I mean, at the expressway, maybe it could be more than those who are spending at the city outlets. And then, so when the average time spent by the is more, customers is more, then they will need to have, if the number of customers increase, then they will also have to increase more space. So getting in additional space, so on and so forth, they could actually try to implement different actions based on the analytics. Right? Now, all this, tying all of them together. So it could be like this. That is, I capture the data. This is what I have done. So there could be different sources of data. Nowadays we have tools wherein you could capture all this data. You capture the data, you use the analytics, and then you would drive the decision. So that is what we have seen. And this is how you could optimize the use, you could optimize what your processes are by the use of analytics, and thereby driving your business decisions. Ultimately, what is the purpose of any business being in place? It is to make make profits, improve your performance in terms of revenue, and also be able to manage risk. Okay. Is the pace comfortable? Any questions until now? Fine, I assume no. So I'm going ahead. Fine, good. Yeah, I'm going ahead. Now, in the analytics domains, now when we say data is there good, now how am I making use of the data analytics? Now, what are the different types of analytics that is? So basically, these are the broad categories of analytics that you have. So one is called as the descriptive analytics. Next is called as the predictive analytics, and then the prescriptive analytics. Of course, there is it's a combination of all these three that we are using. But how are all these three used? So you could see on the right hand side on this graph, as of now, most of the organizations who are using analytics, it is more into descriptive analytics. Some of them using the predictive part, and then very few of them using the prescriptive part. So this is the high end of analytics, and this is the lowest end of the analytics. Now, in the descriptive analytics, what do we do? In the predictive analytics, what do we do? And in the prescriptive analytics, what do we do? So for that, we have the value chain of analytics. I assume this is visible, though we will not spend much time on it, but just be aware of the three domains that are there. That is the descriptive analytics, the predictive analytics, and the prescriptive analytics. Now, descriptive analytics basically it only deals with what is called as the basic analytics, or what we call as the, in the basic analytics, it is just you are trying to summarize the data, whatever is available. That is what I was telling you, that most of the businesses, they use what is called as the summarizing the data in numeric form and graphical form, drawing charts and graphs and summarizing the data just to see what is there in the data. That's it. You are not doing anything else. You are just summarizing the data in numeric form as well as the graphical form. So that is basically the basic analytics. The next level of analytics is what is the data saying? Are there any patterns in the data? So you try to analyze the any hidden patterns in the data and try to use that and build some models. So now these are called as the modeling part of it, or what we call it as predictive modeling, or you would call it as predictive analytics. So with that you could help. So if this is what is happening in the past, then this is what would happen in the future. So that is what you will do. That is where the predictive analytics would form. And here it is all about using what is called as the multivariate analysis, and also using the forecasting and all this stuff. Predictive modeling is fine. And the last stage, prescriptive analytics, is the highest end of the analytics, the advanced analytics. So it is all about trying to answer, why did it happen, and when will it happen once again, what caused it to happen, and what can be to see that you can avoid it, or maybe you can replicate it. And there has been a term which has come into picture, that is what is called as big data. In the recent past, we are hearing this a lot, calling it as big data. Now when it comes into big data, actually, there is no formal definition for big data as such, but only based on what you call as the volume, the variety, and the velocity with which the data is coming. So handling that sort of data sets, like what we just saw, we have 1 lakh transactions per day, and then you have 3 lakh transactions per month, and sorry, you have 30 lakh transactions or 3 million transactions per month, and 30 million transactions just in 10 months. And then maybe if there are multiple fields that are captured, the amount volume. So looking at that, they have come out with the definition called as the big data. That's it. But formally, big data doesn't have any definition anywhere. But as of now, big data means something where you have large amount of data you're dealing with. Fine. So here big data, where and mostly all your statistical modeling or predictive modeling is done on the big data, and that is in that case you came out with a new term which is called as big data analytics. So it is nothing but handling large volumes of data, and using all these statistical tools and advanced statistical tools, doing prediction, building models on that. Model means what we call it as predictive models, and trying to see predicting what would happen in the future. So forecasting. So all this is what is called as the big data analytics. So wherein you have, so it explores the granular details of the business operations and answers questions that were previously considered beyond reach. That is, we didn't have tools and techniques to explore such big data sets. Right now you have. So we are trying to use stats on bigger data sets. So that is what actually is the big data analytics. Now in this there are different types of analytics that are still there. That is domains in the analytics itself. So you have what is called behavioral analytics, you have this text analytics. So there are different analytics that are there. Fine. So here you just be aware of what are the hierarchy in the analytics value chain. That is, now as the complexity increases on the x-axis, you can say that the complexity increases. On the y-axis, the value. Actually, you could say that as the it moves from one level to the other, that is descriptive predictive and prescriptive, the business value changes. That is, the business value increases as the complexity increases. Okay. And as we discussed in the previous slide, as of now, most of the organizations which are saying that they are doing analytics, they are doing analytics on this part, that is the descriptive part. So that is the numerical summary and graphical summary. Some of them are doing this predictive, and very few of them are doing the prescriptive part of it. Okay. And mostly, all these businesses, analytics, in what way is it being used, what does it help from the business perspective. So what are the key, some of the business questions that analytics tries to address is that, am I attracting the right kind of customer, who is likely to churn next, then how many customers do I really have, which are my most successful sales channel, how much does fraud really cost me, who is likely to handle fraud. And some of the organizations internally, I mean, when we have met some of our clients, they also said, I'm sorry, that they have been using these analytics on their employees. Now, to find out, I mean, there are some very financial processes which are there. So what is the chance that employee can create a fraud? So they were also trying to use, internally they were trying to use analytics to that extent, right? So some key business questions, these are just some of the questions that which a business would try at, I mean, just trying to address these questions through analytics. Fine. Now I've been talking about what analytics for person, but what exactly is analytics here? So analytics is nothing but it is a scientific, a process of actually data, or trying to capture data and make some sense out of it, right? And or making use of data plus science, data science, and to make valid decisions or making better decisions, right? And what are the different statistical techniques that are used in order to make meaningful inferences from the data. Now here is the same thing what we saw in the last slide. That was one part is for access and reporting. This is nothing but the descriptive stats part of it, and this is nothing but the analytics part, wherein we are using this forecasting, predictive, and optimization, right? Then how is analytics? Now we have been talking about transforming data into some making valid inferences by using data. So there we are using stats, a data science. Then what is the difference between stats and analytics? So analytics actually is an extension of stats. Stats is the science that is used. So statistics is also a science of numbers, and it is used for, so maths also is a science, and statistics also is a science. So mathematics is called as a science of perfection, and statistics is called as a science of estimation. So here we are using these stats, and analytics analysts are actually different from statisticians. And basically, in what way are they different? So they have the business context in place. The analyst, I mean, whom they are generally called as the business analyst. So they are looking at the problem from the business context and solving using the data from the business context and coming out with the decisions based on the business context, right? Then what analytics is not? Okay, well, analytics is, so what analytics is not? So it is not data entry, it is not like data warehousing or extraction, transformation, it is not the software units, right? And where would the analytics actually work? Now, when we were saying that analytics is use of data, I mean, you need to have data. So only when there is some data, you can use analytics, you need to have some past or some historical information, or wherever you do not have any historical information or you do not have data, their analytics will not work. Okay, you need to have some information. Uh, for example, adding a new feature to a service or a product, we are not sure as to how the customers will act or react to that. For example, there was a feature some time back on Amazon, when they were trying to sell the books. They had one particular feature called as look inside the book or something like that. Look inside, they had a feature. They didn't know, how people will react to that. So they just had to do a trial, seeing that, in case we introduce this feature, then what would happen? Because they didn't have any historical data for that particular thing. Fine. So whatever business decisions that you make, so basically it is more of you using the past data, or you need to have some historical data to do or use the analytics. Now we were talking about analytics. Then we included one more term called as business analytics. Now, what does business analytics mean? So in business analytics, you have many domains which are there. So, so these are some common domains that we hear in the analytics. So you have retail, financial service analytics, risk and credit analytics, marketing and behavioral analytics, customer analytics, and in the businesses we have different functions, right? So each and every function will have data. So in what all ways they can use that data for each and every function. So you could have marketing analytics, you could have HR analytics. So this way you could have analytics for each and every business function as well. Fine. Now, in what way is analytics being used in the industry as of now? So these are some examples that we have taken. So in a supply chain, how do you optimize the supply chain? How do we reduce the inventories? Then how do you customer selection? Identify the customer with great profit potentials and retain customer loyalty. Now, even if you look at all these big bazaar and Pantaloons or all these retail outlets, Mega Mart, I don't know how there are so many these. So if you see all this, how do they grouping the customers in the sense based on the loyalty and based on the purchases. So some are very high value, some are so that way they could segment the customers and they could target some promos for those customer base. Even if you look at the telecom stuff, for them also. So who are all high usage, medium usage, low usage. What are the different promos that can go in for each of these category? What are the offers they can give? How you can retain them? So all this. Then pricing. So as I was talking, as just mentioning, weekend offers. I think for this weekend we have many offers which are coming in from most of the retail outlets. Saying that how. So they do a combo pricing sort of a thing, so that you purchase all this 4 or 5, then you would get it at this price. So the price reduction is this, and so what are the products that can be combined and priced together. So this we were talking about. When you are actually looking at, when they were doing the analysis, what products are bought together. Right, so based on that, so they could come out with a combo pricing sort of a thing. Then HR analytics. So how do I see that I get the best person inside, or how do I see that my hit ratio increases, the number of interviews to the number of person who have been selected, or maybe even the shortlisted. How do I reduce the effort in shortlisting? How do I profile them, and how do I shortlist them? How the hit rate increases? And then how can I retain employees, better retention, right? How can I increase the employee satisfaction? So ESAT improvement, and then maybe if the exits, then how can I attrition? So how can I reduce attrition? How can I improve retention? So or longevity of employees. It could be that they could try profiling the employees, like who are leaving. So at what level are people leaving, which region are they leaving, how many are leaving, or at which level are people leaving the most, why are they leaving, and then do a similar analysis for people who are retained, who are staying back. So what was the profiling of the employees who are staying back? So what is their profile, and at which level, and so where is the retention very high, by location, by Praveen, your voice, I think you can mute yourself. Praveen? Praveen, your voice is coming in between. Sorry. Yeah. So how do you profile the employees who was retained? How do you profile the employees who are leaving? So in that way you can do this. Product and service quality, so detect, I mean, how do you help build your process in such a manner that, or how do you make your process robust enough so that the defects do not happen in the first place. Then financial, R&Ds. So fraud. Now fraud is something like, these days banks, when they are giving loans, so what is the chance that this particular person will default? How do you make an inference about that? So they have the data for the past, and they're try to build a model on that, and then once a new customer comes in, so they try to put in his attributes. So attributes could be age, the income, what he is getting, what is the educational background and all this, and once I put this, there would be a credit score that would come out, and in case they model the credit score and the whether they would default or they would pay, so they could make out, whether this guy would really make fraud on. So this way, in different sectors, analytics has been used. I mean, this we have taken just some of them, but everything analytics is being used. Fine. Now, what are the most commonly used now, as I said, when we get into the analytics part, see, these we have listed only some of them. There are many actually. I've listed some of the. Now, these are the statistical tools that are being used. That is like multivariate analysis, like clustering, principal component analysis, correspondence analysis, time series analysis, classification and regression trees, neural networks, right, decision trees. So these are, these are just some of the statistical techniques that are being used. Now we said that it is a combination of data is there, tools are there, but how about the technology that is being used the most? So the technologies that are being used are these. So this is some stats about what is the tool that are used. So there are many actually, but most commonly used is for the descriptive stats. Yes, the Excel is used. Then recently we have seen R is one of the tool that is being used most extensively. So it is a free where you can use that, but this is a programmable. You need to program. So program, and you have Tableau, you have SPSS, and you have Statistica. So there are many other software tools that are used for handling data. Now basically all this data, maybe you would be wondering if something like Minitab and why it is not Minitab, JMP, they are not being used. Yes, they are not here, they are not being used. But yes, SAS and R, what we hear are most common, wherein these are some programmable languages, so you need to know some programming also to actually do this. Fine, to use these tools. Fine, and getting into, Minitab is not here. Minitab cannot handle that big data actually. We are not seeing the use of, for whatever strange reason, Minitab has not been used for analytics. For all who are using analytics were only, using these two softwares. That's it. I have not seen JMP, what we call JMP or Minitab. No, not been seen used, especially by practitioners who are doing analytics. Okay. Uh, Getting started with analytics. Yeah, you need not be a data scientist in PhD. Any reason Excel is used the most? Yeah, it is only for data summarization, right? And graphs, so with all the macros and all this stuff, it is being used. Fine. Uh, yeah. To get started with analytics, in case you are keen into all this, then you need not be a data scientist or a statistician, but basic understanding of stats is necessary. You could refer to some books, go through some trainings. You have trainings on some of the institutes would provide you training on analytics, like there are some data science courses now these days. There's a fancy designation, I mean, which has come up in the last, I think, 2-3 years. Wherein we have data scientist now. So data scientist is nothing but this is one of the role which certification that is there in the analytics field, and so they train you and all this. So some of the institutes are offering these as data scientist, or you need to be with somebody who can mentor. And then once you are through this, then maybe you could apply this learning to a day-to-day basis. Fine. Now, what are the most appropriate skill sets that you could use? I mean, those are required, not in any particular order, but these are what it is. So, database technology, you should be knowing either of this. So visualization, statistics. See, you should have some basic understanding, or you should have affinity towards numbers actually, and able to understand numbers. Then statistical packages, yeah, anyway they will be able to help you, like R, Science, Python. But basic understanding of stats should be there, and then you should be okay. Stats, I know all the numbers, I know, but you should be able to connect to the business domain. That is, see, if we have a statistician, but if he doesn't know the business, then it will not help. You both should combine together. So any of the, see, all these analytics, how they would be implemented, I mean, in the business context, is that you need to know the business. As I said in the beginning, in the first slide, is nothing but you have the business domain, or the business context should be there. Then you should have the data should be there, and then you should use the technology part of it. That is this, any of the software, statistical software. So all these three things should be there. Now, for example, say you have a business problem. So generally the approach or the steps generally go by this. That is, you define a business problem. Then once you know the business problem, you should know what data to collect. So if you actually need to know what data to collect, then you should know the business very well. That is the business domain, you should know very well. So collecting all the data, and then you do something called as cleaning the data. So from what all sources I should collect the data, where I should collect the data, how much data I should collect, what are the factors I should consider, that is, what are the data I should collect. Once you collect the data, then cleaning the data, then visualizing the data, that is doing graphs and charts, then building your hypothesis, coming out with which are the most important factors. So for that, using some advanced tools, then coming out with your inferences and findings, and then based on those you come out with the actions, then you implement the actions for the benefit of the business. The approach is this, that is steps from the business. We were talking about from the business problem to taking to the business solution, so something like that. Okay, fine. Yeah, I think this is what I have for you for the evening. I would open the session for questions, or you would want me to take you to any other slide. I will take you to the slide in case you haven't. So I am opening the session for questions. These are my contact coordinates, so you could, in case post this session you have any queries, any questions that or we could be of any help to you, please feel free to reach me on this email ID. Yeah, any questions? Yeah, any questions? Okay. Any other? Yeah, Prakash. Analytics itself, is a very huge subject, So here, this session was just trying to sprinkle something about the subject on you so that, you could go back and assimilate. And then we are anyway there, to help you out in case you have any queries or questions. Okay. Yeah, Raja and Jay, I think you've been typing for quite some time. Okay, yeah, I mean, please make note of my contact coordinate, that is my email ID. In case you have any questions, then you can please feel free to reach me. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you, but this is very, as of now, yes, it is good, but you need to know the SAS. See, if in case you would want to handle very big data sets, you need to know scripting, and for which RNS you will need to know. Yes, I mean, you need to learn those two, and it is good actually. Now, if you look at, okay, I will put it this way: what IT was in the 90s, analytics is now. That is why I would put it. How about HANA? This I am not aware, honestly. HANA. I can get back to you. You can give me your coordinates, I will help you. But yes, for analytics, it is not only the, like what I was seeing you here, you need to know this, you need to know statistics, but you also need to know about the statistical packages, yes, as of now. Earlier, yes, until now, for those who are into Six Sigma, using Minitab was easy because it was easy to maneuver and navigate, get the outputs and all this stuff. But this is not like that. I mean, when you're trying to handle huge data sets, it may not be possible. Okay, you need to learn scripting, that is SAS and all. Some programming language you need to learn. Now, as of now, these are the most common, that is SAS, R, and Python. SAS was there earlier, but SAS I think is a licensed version, but R is a free version. You can download it. I understand that you can download it and implement, but you should know the programming part of it. Okay. I think as of now, the financial domain. Yes, why not? You can think. But you, as I said, you should be having affinity towards numbers. Then yes. But yeah, even it could be difficult. But you will have to be learning this. The programming language. Then yes, you will have to invest on yourself for some time, and then make a move. Fine. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Nagaraj is typing. You have any questions? Okay, so then thank you all for your time for attending this session. Nice knowing all of you. And for any questions, as I said, for any further queries you have, so you could make note of my email ID. You could reach me on this ID. Okay. So thank you all and have a very nice weekend.